Welcome back to Small Changes, Big Shifts. I'm Dr. Michelle Robin, and I believe if you change one thing a month, the next 12 months, you'll change your life forever. Joining me today is Joe Agnello, CEO of Lockton's Founder Series. Joe, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Well, as you may or may not know, we've been fervently working behind the scenes to help celebrate kindness, because kindness changes the brain, and we're fighting a mental health crisis right now. And what the studies show, if someone performs an act of kindness or receives an act of kindness, it changes 3 hormones that are feel-good hormones: oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. Just so you know, I'm not going to quiz you after this, okay? But what I want to know from you, Joe, is can you remember a time in your life where someone was kind to you that helped you shift?
I feel like people are kind to me all the time. A specific example would be, 18 years ago, our youngest son was born premature. And he's 18 and he's healthy and great now, but he was born really premature. And I just remember all the unbelievable acts of kindness from people we knew and some that we barely knew. And just the way those little, some were small things and some were maybe a little bigger, but every one of them just made us feel so much better. We had help around us. We weren't alone. And I guess it changes those 3 things you just mentioned. I didn't know that was happening to me, but it sure felt that way.
18 years ago.
Yeah. And since then, I feel like people do kind things all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting. Once you kind of start dialing into it, it's everywhere.
Yes.
When you think about kindness in leadership, how do those 2 go together for you?
Yeah, I think kindness in leadership, kindness is important for everything, right? And it's especially important in leadership if you care at all about culture, which for our company, our culture is everything. And if you show a step of or a demonstration of kindness, you're giving something to someone who brightens their day. It makes them feel better. It makes them, I believe, more positive about the work environment. It maybe lets them take risks that they wouldn't normally take because they feel safer and better in a company that's doing kind things for them. So it just builds up the overall morale of the company. And the indirect benefit you get as a leader is a more enthused associate who is maybe providing a better way about doing business and not being afraid to offer up opinions or taking chances.
On this show, we like to celebrate, guide, connect, which provide hope. We're celebrating you and your company for stepping up to the plate and helping us create a ripple from the heartland, east and south and north and south and east and west, so that we could have acts of kindness. And our goal is to reach 1 million people. So thank you so much for saying yes to partnering with us at Small Changes, Big Shifts.
Absolutely. Thanks for including us.
So I'm thinking about kindness, and I'm thinking about COVID-19. The year 2020 has been a year of fascination. Some people would say frustration. Fascination. We went into it with a mental health crisis already. You don't have to look very far to see that with our kids that happen to be dying by suicide, as well as our adults. And then we have COVID-19, then we have Black Lives Matter, and then we have the political climate. Right. What are you guys doing at Lockton to help combat the mental health crisis?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were, when COVID started, we were very quick and I think did a very nice job of erring to the side of protecting our associates' health and well-being and protecting them against COVID. And we're still doing a good job of that. But as this thing progressed, we saw the other side of this, which was the mental challenges that many of our people are experiencing and some difficulties many of them that you just outlined. So we offer a lot of different outreaches for our associates to take advantage of. We're encouraging our teams to reach out to all the people on their team on a more regular basis, not just video, finding ways to get people back to work in a safe way with their teams. And we've been picking up the pace on that little by little over the weeks and, looking to get people back into the building safely and just staying connected to them any way we can. And we have great leaders who do a great job of staying connected to their people. And we have had some reach out for some help around mental illness and challenges that they've been experiencing with isolation or just fear.
I'm thinking back to the kindness question you brought up where your premature son was born 18 years ago. Isn't it amazing how you can remember like it's today, how people showed up for you?
Right.
When you think about the last even 30 days, Can you think of a time where somebody showed up for you?
Oh, yes. I'm blessed to work with, 800,000 of the greatest people here in our founder series, and the things that they do, checking in on me, asking me how I'm doing in my role as leader of the organization. It just, when you hear that, no matter how stressful your day is, no matter what problem you're dealing with professionally or personally, to have someone inquire, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do for you to help you? And it usually just catches me flat for a minute, and be thankful and appreciative for someone taking the time to do that.
As I mentioned, we like to celebrate, guide, connect, which provide hope. So what kind of guidance would you give our listeners today, or your colleagues who are tuning in today as we're launching this 31-day kindness campaign? It's not a challenge, it's a campaign. Yeah. I want you to know that if you open up an act of goodness and it doesn't feel right for you, give yourself a bye. Give yourself some grace. So we got 31 days where people are going to have an opportunity to do an act of goodness, and they're little things. And we know that little things add up to big things. Have you ever heard this saying, what's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary? It's the little extra.
That's a little, yes.
So we're asking people to go a little extra this time. But as you're thinking about that, what guidance would you give your colleagues over the next 31 days?
Well, those of you who have been diligent in doing kind acts, keep it up. And those of you who haven't, try it. What do you have to lose? Doing it takes little effort. I've yet to see the downside. Even if it's someone that you're maybe not close to, go reach out to them, see what you can do to help them. What's the worst thing that can happen? I really can't think of a bad thing. Maybe they don't accept it. Maybe they're having a bad day, but I promise, not that you're doing it to make yourself feel better, but you will feel better by doing that. So I would just say, give it a try. And to your point, Michelle, it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be a small thing, just to make that person know that you're thinking about them, you care about them, and you want to help them.
Just the little things. We always say small changes lead to big shifts.
Yep.
And, we've done this campaign a few years, over the past few years. And what I've noticed is some people say, you know what, I feel like I'm already kind. And so kudos to you. Continue doing that. You don't even need to step it up. Just keep doing what you're doing to help our planet feel a little more kind, because we know it's going to help us with this mental health crisis. Joe, I have just a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
I'm wondering, if you had a magic wand, what would you do in today's times?
In regards to kindness, or just?
In regards to whatever you want to share. You're talking to your colleagues, and I want them to really see the essence of your heart. I've met you a few times before, and I've always been impressed with your spirit and your openness and kindness. And it's nice to see you again, and once again say thank you. Yeah. But what would you want them to know from your heart to their heart?
Is that 2020, while it has been an incredibly difficult year for all of us for many of the same reasons, some are more impacted than others, I would ask that you, and this isn't easy to do, and I'm not always the best at this either, but I would ask that you take a step back and put it in perspective. And in the history of time, it's really a blip on the radar. Yes, it's having a meaningful impact on our lives and those around us and our loved ones. But in the big scheme of things, this will pass. We will get through it, and life will go on. And just put that in perspective to make yourself feel a little better. Stay close to the people around you, your loved ones, your coworkers, your friends. Check in on them, make sure they're okay. And stay positive and stay lighthearted, and try to keep a smile on your face, and recognize that, as my mom likes to say, this too shall pass.
Well, two things you said there. One, this too shall pass, which is great. And I think about take the next step. I get the opportunity to guide people on health and wellness for the last, hard to believe, 29 years. And I always say, just take the next step. Drink the water. Go to bed 30 minutes earlier. This is the tiny things. So, Joe, as we wrap up, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share with the audience today?
Well, again, I thank you for doing this, and thank you for your work around kindness and wellness and your passion around it. My message is just stay positive, help people out, be kind, understand we're going to get through this, and we'll get through this in a way that someday we'll look back at it and we'll have grown from it in a lot of ways. Maybe some of us will become better at writing or reading, or being better at being alone and still, and going back maybe old school, if you will, and try to become less reliant on technology and some of the distractions around us, and getting in touch with ourselves. So let's try to find a way to get through it, and let's try to find a way, like everything else, to make us better. As I think about our time here at Lockton and my team at Lockton, what we're trying to do is what can we do to take a great company and leave it better than we found it. We've been handed the keys to this great organization, and hopefully in the history of time, it'll be a short period. What can we do to make what was already a great culture and a great company better? That's what my goal is with myself and my team, to leave it better than we found it.
It's interesting you talked about old school. I'm a little bit older than probably the audience, but thinking about old school, I was talking to my friend Toby Cook with the Royals today, and my team has worked really hard at reaching out to the country, to the city, and to the country to help spread this message of kindness. Once again, creating a ripple from the heartland. And we talked about how those touches, the old style touch of by the phone versus a text or email. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
And so I'm encouraging the people that are sharing this journey with us and starting this 31-day opportunity, that you reach out to your friends and invite your family and friends. They can start on any day, whether it's day 1, day 5, day 20. It's never too late to start making these small changes of kindness that will help lead to a ripple, a big change from the heartland. Joe, I've got one final question for you.
Okay.
Over this last 5 years, I had a bad accident about 5 years ago. We talked about it earlier today. I learned what my medicine is. I think it's easy for people to judge that they can't do things where other people can. And what I learned through this journey is that I figured out what my medicine was.
Yeah.
That was innately put inside me to help give to the world. And one of it's hope. I'm curious, do you know what the medicine is that you think that's been given to you, even as a little boy, that you've carried throughout your life, that you share with the world?
Wow, Michelle, that's a good one. I would hope and think people would say he's a positive person. He's an outgoing person that tries to be help people, and he's one that is an optimist and tries to do good. Michelle, one more thing. I'd like to invite and ask all of our Lockton associates to participate in our kindness campaign by participating for 31 straight days. Right here where they're watching on Workplace, they'll see a message on how to sign up for that.
And this month, I want you to really focus on being kind. And so today, joining me on the show is Brooke Runyon, Executive Vice President of Lockton's Founder Series. Brooke, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Well, hey, could you show us your shirt?
Yes.
Kindness is cool. Well, Brooke, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for helping us launch this kindness initiative in Kansas City. As you know, we're trying to create a ripple east and west and north and south to reach 1 million people that kindness really matters. And I was sharing earlier today that Time magazine came out this fall with this magazine, The Power of Kindness, creating a better life and better world. Small acts, big impact. So I've got some questions for you, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. So Brooke, I'm wondering, when you think about your life over the last, 10 years, can you tell me a story where somebody was kind to you that helped you shift?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a story I love at work, actually, about a fellow woman producer who was struggling to find mentorship where she worked in the San Diego office. And she took the initiative to start a women's producer group that was all based around supporting each other. And the premise behind that is for us to grow our business and have a positive impact. Her name's Sally Giblin. And I love that she took inventory of something that she needed for herself and created it and gave it to all of us. And we've really been a great partner to the business, in addition to having a positive impact as part of that.
Connection matters. On this show, we like to celebrate, guide, connect, which provide hope. And so I'm glad you brought up a great story about connection, because people are feeling a little maybe lonely and having some despair during the 2020, whatever you want to call it, COVID, Black Lives Matter, mental health crisis, political climate. So that's really important to have connection. And so on this kindness campaign, we're inviting people on this journey so that they could feel more connected, not only to themselves, but to others. So as we think about kindness, and you know what, you are a class act of kindness. I remember some of the notes you've sent me. I actually still have it on my desk at my office. So I want to say thank you again for that. When you think about sharing kindness, how does it make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel so good, Michelle. And I love that you said something about my note because I have your note up in my office as well. So I love this little quote, kindness is cool, was something my 6-year-old said. And it was so simple, but I loved it and I remembered it. And I wanted to put it on this t-shirt to remind us that kindness not only is cool, it's contagious. And I think that's part of what this campaign is all about. If we can all just hit the pause button and think about how you can do something kind for someone else, it can shift your entire day. I know oftentimes, and today was a perfect example of that, when I get to a place where I'm not feeling like my most present, connected self, I start thinking about what I can do to help other people. And it really helps get me out of that space that I'm in. And I do something to connect someone else, even if it's just an introduction or sending a text to someone that I appreciate something they've done to help me.
You know, when you talk about that verse, kindness is contagious, kind of not like COVID-19, but I don't know if you know that Rita Blitt, who coined that phrase, kindness is contagious, is from Kansas City.
No, I love that.
She's a local artist. She was on my series before when we were celebrating kindness over the last couple of years. And by the way, every podcast for the next 6 weeks will be about kindness. And so you're helping us kick that off today with this kindness campaign as we're going to reach 1 million people, because it's just going to create a ripple. So what are some of your favorite ways to be kind?
You know, as I've done a lot of work really on myself, one thing that I've really worked a lot harder on is more self-love, more self-acceptance. I've really recognized that in order to be kind to others, it needs to start with being kind to myself. So that's one thing I've worked on a lot more lately. And then also just listening a lot more to my inner voice. If I have a thought about someone, then actually being action oriented to call that person, send them a text, send them an email. So really trying to pay it forward. I feel like if I can reach out and do something kind for someone else, they might appreciate that and potentially pay it forward and be kind to someone else in turn. Back to the contagious effect.
Back to that nudge. You know, it makes me think about the story where we'll see in a coffee shop where, let's say Starbucks for an example, where somebody will buy somebody the coffee behind them and then the next person behind them, the next person behind them. I don't remember how many they got up to one day, but it was a lot. And you're like, wow, people, it just creates such a ripple. And it does change. I don't know if you know, it changes three brain chemicals, feel-good chemicals. Did you know that? Oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. That'll help people. So if you're feeling stuck, shift. Take that nudge. I'm a master. One reason we get along is we're similar, because I listen to those little nudges. It'll say, you need to check on, I actually have this patient that has been on my mind for the last 10 days. Okay, 10 days. And I actually called her, but it still won't leave me. And so I feel like I need to go knock on her door and say, hey, what's going on with you? But anyhow, I'm digressing there. So thinking about all the little ways we can listen to those nudges that really matter. Let's go back to you. You mentioned your friend in San Diego who took some action, found a need, took action. Can you think of something else that's something somebody's done for you during this time in 2020 that has just really went straight to your heart?
I feel like during this time, I've gotten so many notes from people, handwritten notes, probably more than I've ever received in my life, just saying thank you for things that I've done to support them, or just saying that they appreciate the relationship we have. And I just am so grateful to have all of those people in my life. It means so much. And it makes me pause often and think about who are the people who don't have people like that in their lives. And so thinking a lot more about, okay, I appreciate the love, I appreciate the support, but what can I do to help more people? It's always a reminder to me when someone's doing something for me, what can I do to help someone else?
That pay it forward again. You know, as I was driving here today for this conversation, I was just dialing into my spirit, thinking about what call to action do I feel led to? And the action was for all of our listeners to really think about your life and think about the people that have helped you out along the way. You know, I talk about in my second book, Engage, the E Factor, Engage, Energize, Enrich. I talk about the people that have enriched my life, from my babysitter, Maggie, who was really only my babysitter from the age of 3 to 9. But Brooke, she wrote me a birthday note, birthday card, not just, hey, happy birthday. She wrote a note in it, and I have horrible penmanship, so I really appreciate that I was able to read it. She wrote me a note every year until she died.
Wow.
Okay, and I was in my 40s when that happened.
I will never forget that. She kept breathing life into me. And I have story after story, but it takes some reflection to go back and think about that. Can you think about somebody in your childhood that really poured into you that you had no idea why, and now you can reflect on that?
Ah, man, Michelle, I don't know. Pass. We may have to come back to
we'll
that
come back
one.
to that one. Okay. Well, I have two more questions on what you said earlier. Something you said earlier was about forgiveness and giving yourself, what I heard you say is I got to give myself some grace.
Yes.
And you may or may not know this, but the number one concern between the age of 10 and 94 is body image. Can you talk about body image and kindness and grace and self-forgiveness? Lump all that together.
Gosh. I mean, that is a big question. That is something that has been a struggle for me my entire life, probably because of things that my grandmother or other people said that were meant to be kind, but they weren't. And that pain really sits with you. Now, you can learn from those feelings of discomfort. I can learn and think about the pain that I have and see my beautiful 4-year-old daughter and think, how can I show up in a relationship with her differently so as not to impact her maybe the way I was impacted and so many other women I know? That is a big issue in this country. And the more we can focus on just leading with love and recognize that every person is a beautiful human being, regardless of who they are and what they look like. I love that you mentioned something about your spirit as you were driving into work. We've all got these beautiful spirits inside. And if we can do the work, Joe mentioned hitting the pause button, just to get more in touch with that and to be present and be grateful for what we have, we can move forward in such a positive way. Let's be kind to ourselves first, regardless of what other people have said.
You know, it reminds me of putting the mask on yourself. In order for you to really express kindness, you've got to be more kindness, give yourself more, be more generous with kindness to yourself and for forgiveness. I was sharing with one of my team members earlier this week, and we were talking about the Hoffman process, which really helped me wake up to my own magnificence. We all have this magnificence that was poured into us as these little babies and these little infants. And we have these kindness acts that we're doing this next 31 days. And I pulled one of the acts out from the kindness cards. We have the decks. And this person had just done some work over the weekend. And I said, somebody pick a number. And the number was 9. And I pulled the card out. It was about forgiveness, forgiving somebody else or forgiving yourself. And she was like, I cannot believe you picked that card, because that's what my weekend was about, me forgiving me.
Yes.
And so that is huge. Wow. When I think about kindness, once again, you do a lot of those things. And that's one reason why we really have resonated over the last few years. Thinking about your team. What are ways that your team can express kindness to you, that you're able to feel it? Because I believe sometimes when you're natural givers, I call it go-giver off the work for Bob Berg. He talks about being a go-giver. I think sometimes it's hard to be a receiver. Talk about being the other side of that receiving.
Oh, it is very hard to be a receiver. I'm not very good at it. In fact, usually when someone's asking how they can help me, I'm quickly changing it around and asking, how can I be more helpful to them? I think for me, with teams I work with, it's more about how can I lead with love, and how can I lead and be more kind and more loving and supportive to them? That's something I've worked on. I have not always been, at least outwardly, someone that appears to be the most kindness, the most loving, even though I care so much. And that's learning how to not be as direct with feedback and things like that. So as I've done work to really show on the outside how I feel on the inside, that can be contagious within our team in terms of how they treat each other, but also how they treat our clients and also how they treat their friends and families. So I really focus a lot now on leading with love.
Yeah, well, you did a great job dodging my receiving question there. I just want you to know I caught that. And so I'm going to challenge you during this 31-day kindness campaign to be a good receiver. I'm going to challenge myself that too, because I am good at deflecting. And let's pinky swear and hold each other. We're going to give each other.
I love a good pinky swear. Challenge accepted.
Yes, we're going to become better receivers. I remember a dear friend of mine, Cindy, years ago, saying that when you're not a good receiver, you take away the feeling somebody else gets that you're so used to doing by being a giver. And so I've had to, that always sits with me. I heard that almost 30 years ago. And so it sits with me, Michelle, be a good receiver.
It's so true.
So
that's why I did not have a great response to your question around who's someone who's really helped you. And you're, as a child.
Yeah, so many great things. Brooke, we're going to start to wrap up over the next 2 or 3 questions. I've got some standard questions I love to ask, but what have I not asked you that you would like to share today with your team?
Oh, I would love to share that this kindness campaign is something that I am thrilled for us to be a part of. You were nice and gave me some kudos. I also want to give a shout out to Stacy Engelman. I think you first socialized the idea with her, and Stacy helped give me some information to promote it with our leadership team. And so thank you to Joe Agnello and Tim Meacham and Mark Moreland and other members of our executive committee for supporting it. It's so great to lead by example. And I want to challenge all of our associates to join in this. As we talked about, kindness can be contagious. Let's have a movement from the Midwest that ripples out to the coast. So we can make that happen. North, south, east, west, just like you said, I'm ready to get after it.
We're going to make a shift right here from the Midwest.
That's right.
It's interesting. People ask me, Michelle, why are you doing this kindness campaign? Because we've done some kindness stuff before. I want to tell you, and I don't want to use the word steroids, but I'm going to use the word steroids, even though I'm a wellness person, is my team they've had a home run. We went from having a fairly simple 21-day kindness program to a rock star kindness program. So I'm with you. Give Stacy and your team a shout out as well as my team. Which it takes a village, as you know, but it takes a leader inside to say, let's do it. And I'm going to put myself behind it. Do you know how this came about? Do you remember, besides Stacy and I harassing each other? Well, I'll share it with you. And this is my memory, and maybe Stacy may have a different memory of it. But Lockton was gracious enough to bring me in to speak in the early part of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And we talked about building rhythm and resilience.
Yes.
And we know that we're in a mental health crisis. And I have lots of friends in the mental health space. And we do believe it's the next pandemic coming. And this kindness campaign can help put the kibosh on that. Mm-hmm. And Stacey, well, what can we do now? And I said, well, if it was me, I would focus on kindness, because the best way to get out of your depression and anxiety is to go be a giver. And so you guys stepped up to the challenge.
Yeah, we need to think bigger. We need to think beyond. I loved what we were doing with you coming in and talking about the rhythm and resilience, but we wanted to think bigger outside of just our partner event and for our associates at Lockton. And this is a way for us to touch more people. And I really believe that if we could get everybody to step up in just a very small way, it can be big. We can all lead with love. And that really can help so many people. We were in a mental health crisis before the pandemic. And so doing the work to really be supportive and encouraging and show people those 3 hormones that you talked about, those things can really change in your body as you're doing kind things for other people. And that can be real medicine.
Well, we are doing it. Speaking of medicine, I got 2 final questions. You ready? Number 1, if you had a magic wand, what would you do?
What would I do if I had a magic wand? I would allow people to feel how I feel when I'm in a quiet space meditating, so that they can feel what it's like to get in touch with that inner spirit, to be comfortable and calm being who you are, where you are at that moment in time. If there's a way to just help people feel what that feels like, I think people would hit the pause button more and recognize that we have everything right here that we need to lead a happy, healthy, and connected life.
Wow, I cannot take that pitch. I cannot miss the opportunity to take the pitch that you just gave me. All right. Because what I want you to realize through this campaign is there's going to be things that really light your fire and bring joy to you. And there's going to be some things where you think, that's kind of flat. I want you to dial into what brings you joy, because I have found through the last 5 years, especially since my accident, and what is really mine to do. We can, it's easy to judge yourself what you're not good at. Like, just so you know, if you called me and said, Michelle, can you come sit at the hospital with me? That's not the life I have. But if you say, Michelle, I need some vitamins, I need some bone broth, I need some positive affirmation, I'm your gal. And so through this, I want you to dial into your own inner wisdom of what is truly yours to do. And that leads with, what is your medicine?
Yeah.
What is your medicine when you are going to be at the end of your life? They say, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. What's kind of your medicine? What's going to be on your tombstone?
Well, as I reflect back from that future point to where I am now and the work I'm doing moving forward, it really is about building a platform to help people lead happier, healthier, and more authentic and connected lives. I love what you said around when your friend asks, how could you be helpful? And you were very specific around the vitamins, the bone broth, the words of affirmation. It's really about figuring out, how can you help people connect those dots to empower them? How can I help people figure out what their inner gifts are so that they can help more people?
All right. Anything else? I've loved every minute. Anything else you want to share today?
I want to encourage all of our associates at Lockton to join us in the kindness campaign. You'll find more information on Workplace, a link to sign up to participate. We welcome you for the next 31 days, and we'll be wrapping up on World Kindness Day.
Joining me is Saeed Taim, Chief Operating Officer of Lockton US. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm going to start with a really personal question first. When you think about your life, and you grew up in Chicago, so you probably have lots of stories here.
I do.
Give me a story about somebody being kind to you.
So when I grew up, I was first generation. So my parents immigrated from the Middle East, and they met in Chicago. There was a significant Middle Eastern population in Chicago where they met. And growing up, we had neighbors. My parents didn't speak English. And so my neighbors were of Asian descent, and they would help me with my homework every night. And so in math and English, because my parents couldn't really help. And so to this day, I'm in touch with those folks that have helped me. And I credit a lot of my success to those early seeds that they did for me. And so these were very kind things that they've done and given me gifts of just basic English, pronunciation, verbs. I mean, just very basic stuff, doctor, right? So that we kind of go through that piece. So that's growing up. I was very fortunate to receive acts of kindness at a very young age.
So, you made me think of a story about a Middle Eastern friend of mine when I was in high school, actually in the pivotal time period from middle school to high school. Her name was Mary Saliba, Michaela Saliba, from my Parsons, Kansas. And she invited me. And Saeed, I kind of grew up a little bit on the lower class, probably a little bit on the dark side. And I was hanging out with people that were actually stealing stuff. And one of my brothers had sticky fingers. And so I watched him get in really bad trouble, and he has scars from stealing. And so I knew that was wrong, but that was kind of my social economic background. And this one person, Mary McKee, she went by Michaela then. Michaela Saliba invited me to her house, and she was from the Middle East. And I remember having baklava, is that right? Baklava. And what are the little things wrapped with the cabbage?
The in Arabic, grape leaves, stuffed grape leaves.
Yes. Anyhow,
yeah.
She invited me, and it changed my trajectory. So I'm so grateful that I'm having this conversation with you today, because truly, because of Mary, I got invited to be around some other kids. Because Mary also was in the same social economic status, but she was very pretty and she was a cheerleader. And we know that sometimes people get kind of pigeonholed based on some of those criteria. And so I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I don't know. That's unfortunately in the Middle Eastern culture, if you don't leave the house fully stuffed with food, we didn't do our job. So if you ever come over our house, don't eat.
Well, sign me up, because I love that type of culture. Well, we're talking about kindness today, and with the generosity of Lockton Companies, we have created a 31-day kindness campaign with your team. And we're launching that today. And so I would love for you to know, how do you feel when people show you kindness? What does it evoke inside your soul?
I believe that I practice a philosophy of showing trust and respect to everyone I meet. Doesn't matter who it is. And I believe when kindness, trust, and respect and all these great qualities are there, it doesn't only radiate to the person that you're talking to. I believe it actually goes beyond that person into their families and more importantly to the communities. And so when I think about kindness and how it makes me feel, it's really about, going home and feeling good and how that kindness then radiates to my 9-year-old daughter and then to my wife, who we just love to have a very nice and kind family experience. Because life is too short, Doctor. It's too short.
Well, thinking about bringing in your 9-year-old daughter, what are ways of kindness that you practice with her? What are some acts that you guys do out in the community that you can involve her so that you could instill this type of thought process or a generous heart? What are some things that you guys have been doing?
There's multiple aspects, but one of the things that we love to do is on a Saturday morning, her and I will go to McDonald's and we will buy a whole bunch of gift cards, $5 gift cards. And then we'll just drive around and, if somebody's asking for money, we always hand them out. But also, she's one of the coolest kids you'll ever meet. She's everything I've always wanted to be when I was a young boy. And so just being able to kind of work with her around just being a product of just kindness and trust and respect and kind of really pushing those angles are really something that we try to do for her.
Well, we know kindness is cool.
It is very, very cool because it goes beyond just you and the person you're encountering. I think it creates an ecosystem all over the place.
I'm going to stick with your daughter here for just a minute. Can you think of a story that she shared with you over the last few months about kindness, how she feels about it?
So there was a story where I was talking to her, and I don't think I probably used the right tone or whatever the case is. She kind of stopped me and said, "Dad, yesterday you said something to me that really hurt my feelings." And I'm just kind of looking, I'm like, I don't even know a 9-year-old could really have feelings here, right? So I'm just kind of shocked from that perspective. She said, "Next time when you mention this to me, these type of stories, please, can you do it this way?" And I look at that and she has helped correct me or help adjust on how to be kind to her. And that is a cool story.
She's teaching you.
Yeah, she's teaching me. Yeah.
The students become the teacher.
The students become the teacher. And I think this is where kindness really plays a role. If I am not kind to her, I don't think she shows me that perspective.
I heard a story where a minister was saying, your daughter is learning how men will treat her based on the way you treat her. And so it sounds like you're raising a daughter who's going to have some high expectations of who she gets to partner up with in life.
Yeah, I don't think my wife will let me do any other way.
Okay. Let's go back to your colleagues because we're sharing with them today about this kindness campaign. When you think about the last 6 months, it's no news to anybody in this room that the last 6 months have been really hard for a lot of people. What do you want them to hear from you?
It is a very complicated time. I think it's a very volatile time. It depends on how you're approaching the situation. There are two ways to look at it. It is going to be tough and stressful, or it is going to be the best time of your life. So I think there's a choice to make. And I think it really reflects on your attitude. As I'm talking to our people, I think it's first and foremost, please take care of yourselves and your family first. Whatever you do, be kind to that, because without that, it is hard to do anything at Lockton or for our clients or even for the communities. And so being there for your family, and it is a very trying time for specifically working mothers that have to, or working parents or single dads or whatever the case is. How are they going to be there for their kids during this homeschool period? How is it going to be for their clients and meetings? We have several meetings I've been part of where, we embrace the fact that there are children in the room. I think let's be kind and compassionate in every way, shape, or form. Our people need it. And, as you read stories, it is a hard time. But I think we should flip the script and say this is going to be the best time for us. At the end of this story, I believe that we will come out of this better than ever before. Not just for Lockton, but for our people and our clients.
I've seen a saying or quote that's been going around social says, what if 2020 was the year that we've all been waiting for?
Yeah.
What have been some of the gifts you've gotten this year?
I've got to spend a lot more time with my family, a lot more time. And they're pretty cool. So I haven't traveled as much, but also a lot of focus on myself. So I've been very intentful on, meditation, walking more and doing a lot more activities. But also, work has been, I've taken a new job on May 1st. So it's been a crazy transition period, but also it's been one with reward. I've got to meet a lot more people and have more conversations. I think I look at it as a gift. I have received one of the most incredible gifts ever to anyone. I'm so thankful, but it's been a great period.
Well, I'm a people collector.
Yeah.
And I'm collecting you, and you didn't officially invite me to dinner, but if you guys are serving a great, healthy Middle Eastern dinner, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So I'm collecting you, and I'm adding you to my friend list right now. So I can see why you would be great at that. I want to start to wrap up our conversation. I've got some questions I typically ask most of my guests, and on this show we celebrate, guide, connect, which provide hope. We're celebrating you for stepping into your leadership. We're celebrating your neighbors when you were a young boy who said, you know what, we can help him. We can help teach him English. And isn't it amazing when people pour into you that you're living this life you probably never imagined?
No, absolutely.
It makes me almost tear up thinking about my own life and thinking I'm sitting here launching this kindness campaign and thinking about all the people that have been kind to me from as a little person to even today in this moment. So when you think about that, if you had a magic wand, what would you do?
I've been very fortunate to visit a lot of places in the world, whether personal or business. So very unfortunate situations, and see some interesting things. As there are two ways to look at the world. Am I grateful or am I not grateful? And so I think it's a choice. And I think it's an act that you have to remind yourself every day of gratitude. And for us being alive, every day we have an opportunity to do something special. To absolutely just wake up and do something special. And whether it's just treating your family members well, helping your neighbor lift up the groceries, or talking to someone, asking them just how you're doing, or even smiling at someone. I mean, these are choices that we all have in our world. I even forgot your question, doctor, but here's what I'd say. I think as we look at the future, I believe a person can change the world. It might be crazy, but I believe a person can change the world. And we have these choices and these opportunities to make these little adjustments that then can radiate into our ecosystems, communities, and everyone around us.
Well, that was a question I didn't ask. I thought about asking you a few minutes ago of what you foresee for the future. So I'm glad you picked up that energy. Yeah. There's a saying by Margaret Mead that says, never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And we're doing that with this campaign with the help of Lockton supporting us. And we're going to create this ripple east and west, north and south, across the heartland. Because, we are the heart of the world right here flat in the Midwest, and how we're going to spread that. I've got a couple final questions for you. But this one is there a question I didn't ask that you wanted to share with your associates today? Anything else that you feel called to share?
I think the question, I would just ask the question, very simply, when we start a conversation, with no agenda, ask the other person, how are you doing? Just ask them, how are you doing? It's not a big ask. And don't ask like you're pretending to ask. Like actually say, hey, I'm just checking in. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can help out with? Or is this a good time to talk? Whatever the case is. No one's dying as a result of what we're doing. We have a business we're running, and absolutely we should run it. But we should also have trust and respect and kindness for each other. I think showing compassion. Asking this very little simple question, I think it go in a long way of moving our company forward.
I'm smiling because when I'm having my A day, rarely, but once or twice a week, I'll say to my partner, what can I do to serve you today?
Yeah.
What can I do to serve you today? What can I do to make your day better? Well, you sure have made my day better hanging out with you today.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Saeed. So final question. Well, second to final question. Yeah. Final question. What do you think your medicine is?
So define, I read the question, so define medicine.
I believe that we all have gifts that we're given.
Yep.
And inside our soul that maybe we're born with. And I think the older I get, the more I realize what mine is. Have you started to tap into what your medicine is?
I come from a culture where smiling is considered charity, a gift. So like every time I go anywhere, I try to smile as much as I can and be warm and welcome, because I feel like cracking that open immediately allows further real conversations to happen. And so that's my, I think if everybody just smiled at each other, I think we could get a lot more done.
It's always so funny doing these interviews because it just goes to a story in my head.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to ask you if there's anything else you want to share with your associates. We'll give you a minute to think about that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to our audience here. Back in college, I was given the assignment to read a book called Love by Leo Buscaglia. Have you heard of Leo Buscaglia?
No.
He was a USC professor, and he talked about psychology. And in this book, he tells a story about a young man that was writing his basically suicide note. And he was in California. This is a true story, by the way. And in that note, if somebody smiled at him on the way to the bridge, he was not going to jump.
Wow. That's interesting.
Interesting you shared smile, right?
Wow.
So I read that story at the age of 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten to look people in the eye. We're not roll to roll, we're soul to soul.
Yeah.
And how do we help that? And that smile will help. You never know what kind of day people are having. So Thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful medicine, and Leo Biscotti would give you a pat on the back.
Yeah, he would. That's fascinating.
Thanks again for joining me. Anything else you'd like to share with your colleagues today?
I'm glad that we're doing this. We're doing the kindness campaign. I think it's a great campaign. And I think as we continue toward this campaign and also creating a habit for the future, I think this is something that we can continue. And I think that's the hope, is create a habit for the future of showing kindness to everyone around us. I think now more than ever, people have challenges and hardships. And I think hopefully we can change it just a little bit.
We are inviting you to join us today for this kindness campaign. You'll have a kindness act in your email every day for the next 31 days. We'll be closing up on World Kindness Day on November 13th. Hey, help us create a ripple across the world. All right, I'm sending you big heart-to-heart hugs.